Hi, everyone. Unit 2 actually covers two chapters, Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. So I'm going to break this into two separate videos so you can kind of parse this up a little more digestible blocks. So Chapter 2 gets us a little further into operations strategy. It really builds on Chapter 1, so make sure you've taken a look at that. But I just want to touch on a few highlights from this. So we're going to start really getting into the more details of the operation and diving deeper into the processes themselves right here in Unit 2. So let's get going. And I'm just going to focus on these three things, making sure you understand how operation strategy fits into the bigger picture. We'll talk about the 9 competitive priorities because that's what drives operations management and operations strategy. And then I just want to talk briefly about order qualifiers and order winners. And keep in mind with all of these topics, these are things that you should be considering and using in your analysis of your company for your team project. So all of these building blocks should be starting to show up in your project. So, operation strategy, it's how we do what we do. That's a fancy, I think a little bit better way of saying the means by which operations implements the firm's corporate strategy. So, we want to kind of start first with the corporate strategy. It's like, where does the organization want to go? So that's up here in the left-hand corner. Environmental scanning, core competencies, core processes, global strategies. So as the full organization goes, what is it they're trying to accomplish? We are trying to be a premier education provider, blah, 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 that kind of thing. Very high level. And these three blocks in the middle are kind of the building blocks of that corporate strategy. So the market analysis is telling us, well, what customers are out there? How can we group those customers? That's market segmentation. And then what services or products do those customers need that I might be able to provide? So all of that is going into corporate strategy. Competitive priorities, we're going to break those out in just a minute. There's 4 major categories, but it turns out there's 9 of them overall. And that helps us kind of organize what it is we do. What do we do that's special, that's unique, that's going to set us apart from our competitors? And then finally, that last box in the middle, new service and product development, that's when we say, okay, we know what the market is, we know what we can do. Now let's put that together into services and products that these customers are going to want. And that's to get down to, in the bottom left-hand corner, the operations strategy. That's how are we going to do business day to day to achieve that corporate strategy. So what machines are we going to buy? What people are we going to hire? How much are we going to pay them? What training are they going to need? How are we going to measure quality? All of those operational decisions, scheduling and raw materials and supply chain partners, all of those pieces that this course really gets into, what this chapter is trying to do is frame that out as we are contributing, we're the day-to-day nuts and bolts of achieving that corporate strategy. So just, I hope, help kind of put this into perspective for you and where all this fits, because it's just a lot of definitions and a lot of terms flying around. All right, let's just talk through these really quickly. This came right out of the text, but I don't want you to kind of to skip these. These are the competitive priorities. These are the things that we need to consider, and we don't need to do all of these, but we need to know which ones of these are what our organization is going to say, this is what we build our business on. And this is really important, again, for your company project, because you should, in explaining, because the early part of the project asks you to tell us about this company, this is part of that defining the company. Here's what they do. So how they approach doing their business. So low cost operations. Are they about being low cost? They don't have to be a low cost operation. Lamborghini makes a lot of money not by selling low cost cars. They sell very high quality cars. So there's some organizations, some restaurants, some service providers like Harvard University, extremely expensive. They are not a low-cost operation, but they make a lot of money by doing what they do. So you've got to decide, and you should be able to look at an organization and kind of decide, are these guys trying to be a low-cost competitor, or are they just Not, they want to be affordable, but not the cheapest guy in town. They want to focus more on quality, which takes us right to the next level is, do they expect to be the top quality? Do they want to be the Lamborghini? Do they want to be Coach bags? Do they want to be that luxurious, really high end? There we go, Rolex as the example here. Or do they want to just be, meet a medium customer, an average customer? Consistent quality, I'm not loving this because we'll talk about the definition of quality next week, but the definition of quality is to consistently meet or exceed your customers' expectations. And McDonald's does do that. If you can order a McDonald's cheeseburger. I've ordered them in China, and they look a whole lot just like the cheeseburgers that I get here in Newark. So consistent quality is a must, but it's kind of a lower standard. It's not luxurious. It's not gourmet ketchup. It's not choose which cheese you want. It's you're going to get the yellow cheese, and you're going to get that same hamburger thin patty that you always get at McDonald's, but you're going to pay $2 for it. Or I could go to Chili's and get it and pay $7 for it. So that's the kind of thing is we should be able to define a little bit about, how that company's approaching their quality expectations. Time factor is another item that comes into play for some industries. People want things fast in many cases, and so is delivery speed a priority for the company that you're looking at? Is that necessary for those customers? Now, certainly for Netflix, I want to go in, I want to bring Netflix up on my screen, I want to click on the movie we want, and I want it to show up on my TV instantly. So speed is critical. On-time delivery, on the other hand, is just meeting your promises. So that's kind of just doing the basics. Development speed talks about how quickly you're creating new products and services. And you look at some organizations, they don't really create many new products or services. They might add a menu item once a year. I mean, look at Chipotle. They've got a good, solid, good quality product, reasonable price. It's not cheap. I think I probably put Taco Bell more at the cheap end of the scale for that style food. But um, oh my gosh, they are consistent, high quality, reasonable price. They're not really fast, and I know I don't go into Chipotle sometimes because the line is wrapped around the entire store, and I know I'm going to be in there 45 minutes waiting for my order, and I know even if I put my order in online on the app, it's going to tell me to come over in 20 minutes, and if I show up there in 20 minutes, it ain't going to be ready. So I'm going to stand there another 20 minutes. So they're not on delivery speed. They're not even on-time delivery. And they also aren't very much on development of new products. I don't think so anyway. I can't think of a lot of new products they've introduced. But these are all getting at, kind of what are the things that your organization is going to do to distinguish yourself in the market. I think when we look at a Chipotle, it's probably about the quality of the food product and that it's made to order. There it is, customization. So I'm going to go down through that line, or even if I go on the app, and I'm going to have them build my burrito exactly the way I want it. So they have a high ability to do that. So we're starting to see that of these 9, if we looked at Chipotle, maybe 2 or 3 of them would jump out. Go down to the next line, variety. Again, just looking at Chipotle, probably not variety. You can get a bowl, you can get a burrito, you can get a taco. You want a hamburger, you're going to the wrong place. No variety. And you look at Amazon, extreme variety, tens of thousands of products that you can choose from. And then finally, volume flexibility, accelerating or decelerating the rate of production or services or products quickly to handle large fluctuations in demand. That's going to take a very unique operation. It says the United States Postal Service here. That one's a little harder to come up with an example of. But when you look at these 9, please be thinking about your company and which ones of these 9 would be what you think their competitive priorities are. And now think back to that diagram we had at the beginning. If these are our 3 or 4, then our operation is going to be designed to accomplish those 3 or 4 competitive priorities. So that's how this kind of all fits together. Um, Other topic I want to talk about, a little different, but again, it's something to be thinking about with your company, is order winners and order qualifiers. And this is really important. So order winners are things that the company needs to do in order to legitimately be in that industry. So if you're a taco shop, you need to be able to produce tacos. You need to be able to have meat and cheese and lettuce and put it all together and put it in some kind of wrapper and hand it to the customer. So if you can't do that, you're not legitimately in the taco business. Um, that's an order. Sorry, I should have put these in the other order on the screen. That's an order qualifier. If you can't meet the expectations of the customer, let's back up and look at a university. We offer classes, we offer degrees, we have online classes, we have daytime classes, we have evening classes. Those are probably order qualifiers. If you don't have classes and have them available to students, maybe having them online isn't what everybody does. So you at least need classes and the ability to offer a degree. That's a qualifier. Order winners are what the customer will use to decide whether they actually use your service or product. So how do they choose my taco shop? Maybe I've just got incredible sauces, and that's what wins people over and gets them to come in the door. Maybe my prices are so incredible, and you can come in and get a 12 taco box for the NFL game this afternoon, and I can have it ready fast, and I can have it delivered, and you can have tacos at your NFL party. Maybe that's the order winner. But we should be able to answer these questions for any company we look at. So what are the qualifiers? So what are the things that they must do in order to be legitimately in that industry? And then what are the order winners? Because if they aren't hitting the order winners, they are going to be in business, but they're not going to be selling anything, and they're not going to be able to sell enough to survive. And that's why we see businesses going out of business. So they need to know what their qualifiers are and what their winners are. And you always have to have your qualifiers, and your winners may change over time. So maybe people want healthier choices, or they want lower cost, or they want a value menu. So your winners, you can sometimes have to tailor a little bit as the market changes. But your order qualifiers, if you're not meeting that minimum level, you're not in the game at all. So I hope that helps with kind of getting your head around these topics.